Um, we can get started. Our next session is Next Gen Ready, Gear Up for What's Ahead. The session will focus on the essential skills needed for success in a tech-driven world. Our speakers will explore skills that will stand as a testament of time for innovative approaches to upskilling the future. We are excited to hear from the panelists, Dr. Amna Abdulaziz Al-Marri, Executive Director of Learning and Effectiveness and Enablement at the Department of Government Enablement in Abu Dhabi. Welcome, Dr. Amna. Rick Bleeker, CSR Manager at Cisco Systems. Hello. Whatever you want. Jillian DeMello, Independent HR Advisor. And of course, moderating this session is Mr. Kareem Soufi, Strategic Partnership Manager at Coursera for the MEA region. Kareem, over to you.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. First of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to our great MC. What an MC. Can we give it a hand to Khaled, please, for being with us for 2 days. This was amazing. So I understand it's right after lunch, so I think we will have a soft start. Let me just say I'm truly honored to be on this stage with our distinguished panelists, and I'm honored to be with you as well. I've met many of the attendees during today and yesterday, and it's really fascinating all the thinking that's going on in this place. So it's a pleasure. I'll start with a quick introduction to our panelists, and I'll start with Her Excellency, Dr. Amna. So she's the Executive Director of Learning and Enablement and Effectiveness Sector at Gov Academy. Her Excellency focuses on strengthening the learning and development ecosystem in Abu Dhabi and has led several impactful programs such as Temkeen, the Future Finance Leaders program as well. In her spare time, Her Excellency likes to read, and she writes as well from time to time. Welcome, Your Excellency. And then I'm going to move to Rick. Thank you for being with us. Rick Bleeker joining us from the Netherlands. He is the CSR Manager for Europe North at Cisco Systems. Rick is responsible for implementing CSR policies focusing on digital entrepreneurship and ICT training. He has represented Cisco on a number of international projects, including the 2030 EU Vision on Skills for Smart Industrial Specialization. Besides his passion to education, Rick is also a music lover, in a way, and a musician. He plays bass guitar. So in case you have questions about the topic or about playing guitar, Rick is your man. So thank you, Rick, for joining us. And then we have Jill DeMello with us today. She brings 20 years of experience in HR. She worked with multinationals such as PwC, Cigna, and Pfizer. She has led strategic workforce planning, L&D, and compensation functions, and delivered complex HR transformation programs. At PwC, she established the strategic workforce planning function for the Middle East, which earned global recognition. In her spare time, Jill chases two things in a way, or two. She loves chasing, so she chases her kids around Dubai in a way, which I do a lot as well, chasing my kids all over, and she chases the ball in tennis courts. I also play tennis, Jill, so maybe we should have a match one day. Thank you again, Jill, for being with us. So now that we're done with the introductions, I want to kind of jump right in and ask a very irrelevant question. And I'll start with Your Excellency, if you don't mind. I'm going to ask about a music question, in a way. Again, people are just done with lunch, so we start soft now. We have the musician here, but the question is for you. So
he can support me then.
Yes. Let's talk about the Beatles, if you don't mind. An iconic band. My parents loved their music. I loved their music. And then I intentionally played a few songs to my kids the other day without telling them this is good or that this is nice or anything. So no influence. However, they loved it instantly. And so it's a kind of the value that these songs bring, the value, is timeless, right? It's crossing generations. So my question is, when it comes to skills, do we every few years need to kind of reset and learn new things, or are there some skills that we can just learn and then they will serve us for a lifetime?
First of all, I would like to say thank you for having me and this professional panelist. To be honest, I'm honored to be here today. This is first. Back to your question, actually with an evolving global landscape changing, the human capital fundamental, it should be there. So the timeless skills significant, and it is a priority today. For example, some skills like critical thinking, problem solving, emotional intelligence, effective communication, all of those soft skills are significant today, and we cannot ignore it. Especially with the AI as well, present of AI. So even I was reading the World Economic Forum report was mentioning that 90% of top performers are excellent in emotional intelligence. So soft skills, again, is important and significant, and we cannot ignore it. Even the team members in our entities, we are always discussing this. Even the team members focusing on emphasizing enhancing those soft skills.
I see. Okay, well, yeah, that's. I think this makes a lot of sense. We needed critical thinking before, we need it today, and we're definitely going to need it in the future. And if I bring Jill here to the conversation, so we heard from Her Excellency, and I'm interested to see as well from your perspective, if we look at kind of, let's put it this way, if you want to design a survival kit of skills, if you were to pack a few skills in there, what would these skills be?
So first of all, thank you very much also for having me here today, and for my other panelists. What a pleasure. So we did get some of these questions in advance, and I was thinking about this, but some similarities. So it's nice to know that there's trends around this. I thought that I would be saying a lot of things around digital skills, but actually for me, and this might be somewhat boring, but skill number one would be Microsoft Office Suite skills, Excel, PowerPoint, foundational skills. These are ones that help you pull data, extract data, organize data, have critical thinking within the data. There are certainly a number of projects I never would have been able to do without advanced skills, without us being able to use more evolved technologies, Alteryx, Power BI, some mail merge technologies. We could not execute on compensation planning, as an example, once our workforce reached 7,000 to 8,000 people. The system started breaking. But that's the foundation, is good Excel. There's so much you can do with that. So I think fundamentally, understand that, use it as a tool. It's not there to replace, it's there to supplement the work that you do. So that's one. The second one I had was critical thinking. And I just get concerned that, especially with our younger population coming through, there's so much reliance on technology. And we have to remember that data coming from ChatGPT, as an example, this was put into systems, put on the internet by people, and now it's being kind of cyclically extracted out. We have to continue to be able to pull that data, analyze that data, create new content, and that's, to me, it's the critical thinking skills that's going to differentiate what us as humans are able to do from technology. That would be number two. The third skill for me would be around partnership, collaboration. I think as work becomes more complex, we don't really understand the future of work in its entirety. We have some sense for what are some skills that we think we want to start latching into, but what does that future look like for industries, for us to be able to meet our growth objectives? I think the only way for us to do that effectively is partnering. It's not going to happen within industry. It's not going to happen within one particular company. We have to be able to leverage and collaborate across with vendors, with consultants, across industries. So I would put this as my third skill. So nothing like overly digital. Yeah.
Yes, and we will talk a bit more about how we do innovative upskilling programs in a collaborative approach. So I love the three skills. I must say, though, I'm so happy you chose Microsoft Office. And
so boring, I'm sorry. But,
no, but it is great. And I'm happy you mentioned it and not the Google Suite, for example, because I mean, I had to switch recently to start using Google applications, and there's no match there.
Let me caveat for the safety of everyone that Google Suite is fantastic also. I think both of them have their
all right, yes. Now, Rick, if I may as well have your thoughts on this. So we talked about a combination of soft skills, technical skills as well. Now, growing up, 50 years ago for me, but so we had the CCNA from Cisco and maybe the MCSE from Microsoft as well. They were incredibly popular. And you're joining us from Cisco. Now, I don't want to talk about CCNA in particular, but it's just something that was incredibly popular back then. In today's world, if you were to choose one modern technical skill and teach to everyone in the world, do you have any thoughts on this? What would that skill be?
Working now. Thank you, Jill. And let's indeed not talk too much about certain companies and not about individual courses. However, first of all, thank you for inviting me here and at this great congress. I think we need, in terms of partnerships, people coming together, continuously talking to each other and see what we can do for the next step. So thank you for inviting me. In terms of indeed Cisco, and the program we run is a worldwide program. It's called the Networking Academy program, and it runs in 190 countries with 4.7 million learners on a yearly basis. It runs for 25 years now, more than 20 million learners, and we give it away for free. It's our corporate social responsibility to do this. We call this our gift to society. And indeed, CCNA, Cisco Certified Network Associate, which sounds like a Cisco course, which is not. We don't train on specific courses in terms of knowledge. It's generic. So the courses we give away is for generic use for all kind of vendors. It's very important to state. Otherwise it would be sales or whatever. It's not. But indeed the CCNA course is still an industrial standard worldwide. If you put such a thing on your resume, it will give you access internationally because companies will recognize that on your CV. Before they look at your name, they see CCNA or CCNP, the professional or even the expert. So if you have such courses and such certificates on your resume, you're doing well. Giving a little bit more in deep answer, so we're running 40, 50 courses. And the answer to your specific question, which one would you like most, would surprise you. I will give you two. First of all, it's networking. The very sometimes old school sounding networking, but every company still has, even it's in the cloud, their own data centers. And everybody's working with routers and switches. And these data engineers, these people working and have learned that kind of tools and that kind of courses network is so valuable. If I looked yesterday at some slides in terms of salaries and career perspectives, networking should be there as well because it's still very, very relevant. But the second one, maybe won't surprise you either, is cybersecurity. We have millions of jobs available worldwide, also in this region, on cybersecurity, running from an intro to cyber ops to network security For instance, we also have ethical hacker courses. It's being loved by the kids. They can sit at home and try and ethical. They can try and do things. So I would say, to give a specific answer to your question, cybersecurity should be on top of the list.
Okay, well, thank you, Rick. I think makes a lot of sense. And if I may now go to your Excellency, and I would, so we talked about different skills, and my thinking now, if we were to group these skills into a learning program that would help learners, whether across the nation on a national level or within one institution, for example. I'm going to rely on your expertise, as you led Temkin, you led the Future Finance Leaders program as well. So what do you think are the best strategies, in a way, to lead such upskilling programs?
Yeah, when we are talking about upskilling program, we have to think about the effectiveness of the learning programs. So it's not only technology, but it's the meaningful of the ecosystem, of the learning ecosystem as a whole. If you ask me, the three main strategic priorities of this program will be the integrated ecosystem. This is the first one. The second will be the partnership model, how we will use it and how we will do it, and the strategic personalized journey. For example, in Abu Dhabi, we have individual development plans based on the needs of the organization, based on the need of the individual himself. So it's matching the need of the government, matching the need of the performance of the organization. And when we are talking about the integrated ecosystem, we have a lot of platforms, technology platforms. One of them are Coursera, we have LinkedIn, and so many. So, and we make sure that we are empowering the new technology skills like the AI, for example. We have a full upskilling digital program to enhance the skills of the technology. When we are talking about the stakeholder management or the partnership, we are very picky to choose our partners to make sure that we have adding value both ways. So this is the main three priorities. I believe it will make the learning ecosystem and the learning programs effective and successful and meaningful.
Okay, thank you, Your Excellency. And I'm sure Coursera is probably the best partner, if I'm not wrong.
One of the best, yes.
One of the best, okay. Jill, if I may, so I think very valid points. We talked about effectiveness as part of any learning program, enabling these learning programs with the right set of arrangements in terms of stakeholders, ecosystem, and all of this. It's actually in Her Excellency's title, right? Effectiveness and enablement. I'm going to rely on your experience from the field, as you were with companies like Cigna, Pfizer, and so on, but also on the theoretical lens of your consultancy days with PwC. And if we look at the skills, is it one size fit all kind of situation, or do I as a learner need to think about the skills that actually work for me? Rick mentioned cybersecurity, but maybe that's not what works for me personally, right? And also from an L&D perspective, from an educator perspective, and I'm sure many of the audience here are leading upskilling programs or similar things. How do they customize what they're offering to their learners in order to make it effective and to serve the core objectives of their organizations?
Yeah. So I think there's two lenses to this. So the question is around how do we support customized learning journeys? So the organization lens, and then for the individual as well. So looking back at, I would say, my workforce planning hat, if I put that on for organizations, the learning journeys to me, the learning pathways we want to create, that's the end product of us doing workforce planning is the ideal. For me, I always think of L&D, it should be business-led. When I first came to the region, I think L&D was still very much seen as This is a nice to have for staff. It's a way to recognize and engage people. They get some time away from the business, networking opportunities, a chance to come and see Dubai, which all of that is great. I'm not taking away from that, but I think L&D now has lifted in many organizations as being seen as business-led. So if it starts with workforce planning, so an understanding of what are the skills that you need to meet your business priorities today and to position you for the growth that you want to do in the future. That's step one, and that's done through skills mapping exercises, bringing the business in intimately to help identify your key skills. And then, of course, the second challenge, that's challenging itself, but the second challenge is understanding your supply. So what do people have today? And where I worked at PwC before, we did a big project with a couple of our lines of service, where we did look at identifying the demand and then the supply state. And I would say we used Workday, so we had a campaign where we asked individuals, first we said, these are the skills as identified by you, by your business leaders, as what's needed for you today and tomorrow. And that was done by sub-function, that was done by level in the organization. Full taxonomies behind a definition packs for individuals. And then we said, please go into Workday. That was our central repository. It doesn't have to be Workday. We used that. And please update your skills and confirm to us that you've done that and you have your manager to validate. Again, all kinds of room for error here, but it was a great first start. We typically go for 70% completion on engagement surveys. We had 93% completion for a talent base of over 700 people. I was shocked at how many people did that. And it's because, back to this question of the learner themselves, people are so hungry for this. People want to know, what are the skills needed of me to be able to do my job effectively? And oftentimes we can't tell them. So that step one is, well, what are the skills? And it's business aligned. And if you can get it business aligned, the business supports, and frankly, the downstream stuff, the L&D pathways, your talent acquisition strategies, all of that becomes very simple if you have that aligned understanding of supply and demand.
Well, Rick, as you've noticed, so we have some sort of guidelines when it comes to these upskilling programs, and I was interested to see if you have any examples from your time with the representing Cisco on international projects with the EU, for example. So you've done a few of these upskilling programs. Any examples of what actually worked in your case?
I give you one example, and if it works, we still have to wait for it because we're in the middle of the process. However, we already found out also lessons learned, also for myself, because I expected it to be more successful, but it's interesting to share with you because 2 years ago from Brussels, which is the European heart of the European Parliament, of the European Commission. The commissioner for also HR reached out for us, for Cisco, say, hey guys, you're doing on courses and in terms of students and learners, you're doing a lot of things. Can you help us to train employees within companies in terms of re and upskilling? We said, yes. And we started the program with Randstad Global Staffing Agency. I guess you know them. I'm not sure they're too active here in the Middle East and in the Arab states. But of course you can choose any other staffing agency which is active here. The thing is why we partnered with them is basically very simple. We have coverage in all 27 member states of the European Union, both of us. Basically Randstad has on every corner of every street his own shop, being this global staffing agency, and also Cisco is present in all these states. So the infrastructure is there. We have the content. We have all the courses to provide and to distribute via persons like me and via all the schools and the companies we are connected with. And Randstad or any other global staffing agency does have assessments. There was a question yesterday from audience, how can we accelerate? How can we measure? These companies, they are professionally equipped to do assessments, both for students, but also for workers, for employees, for companies, public and private. So we partnered, we started the process. We got some very interesting percentages also from the World Economic Forum. If you think that, for instance, in Europe, it's more than 100 million employees should be trained every year. Think about those numbers. Every year is 100 million. But also, for instance, that 70% of the CEOs in Europe of companies, they say that because of this paradigm shift, because of the changing in terms of digitizations, it really is the lacking of skills that hampers investment, that we need to accelerate the need for skills. These are serious numbers. Strange enough, which was also the lesson for me, also running this project together with Randstad, is that only 15%, 1/5 of the CEOs communicate about skills internally at the organizations. So it is massively important. Education, this is the term we hear these days continuously, and we know also for companies, also in the Arab states, it is so important to show ownership, to show leadership, but it's not being executed the way it should be also top-down within the companies. I've been on stage with leaders of companies that say, hey, this is a win-win, we're going to do that. I'm going to discuss this Monday in my management team. And I've been calling afterwards and checking afterwards, and sometimes it becomes a little bit silent. So therefore, we always say, and we changed the program for that reason, is that ownership and leadership, if you want to do such things within your company, is crucial. So we learned also in terms of moving forward with this project that we need to do more than just say, hey, this is cybersecurity, this is the Internet of Things, this is networking. Congratulations and good luck with it within your company. You need to guide it. You need to have a project really to embed it within the organization, and from that point move forward. So it is half a success already. We're running this in 4 pilot states in Europe, in the Netherlands, in Spain, in Italy, and in Greece. But the goal is indeed to move forward to the 27 member states, and maybe also you can more or less, you can never copy paste things, but you can use the information also for, I'm happy to share it here in the Arab states. I think there's interesting, it's an interesting process and also interesting lessons to learn.
It is indeed. Thank you for sharing. It's always interesting to see how these programs function, especially if they are across different geographies. So thank you for sharing. Your Excellency, so if I may ask a question with two sides in a way, one from a leadership perspective, and then the other from a learner perspective, kind of. So we understand now that there are some soft skills that we need to focus on, but at the same time some modern skills that we need to focus on. How do we strike a healthy balance when I'm designing an L&D program for my team, for example, but at the same time, me as a learner wanting to have the best skill set for today's world?
When you are asking for today's skill, actually, I attended a very interesting session with Professor Barbara, like 2 hours back. It's very interesting and meaningful. And it's inspired me how we will design a proper, learning programs that includes soft skills, and we are not ignoring the AI complementary side. So answering your question, there are a strategic component of having an effective learning programs that reflect the future skills. So the core principle of this embedded the lifelong learning in our culture, in the organization. So the organization itself, they should create nurturing talent strategy that build inside the organization inspiration of learning, continue learning every day, every single moment. So it's not a training program, or it's a learning intervention. It's combination of multi learning aspects. It's not only attending training course in a physical or online. It's a learning intervention on job training, coaching, asking your colleagues, spending more times with experts in terms of AI, in terms of data, because we are data-driven society now. We are not only reflecting on the main basic skills, but we are looking for more and beyond.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Jill, I was looking at your profile, and I think you have a unique combination of experience in the consultancy field, but also at the same time in the field, working as an HR leader. So I'm sure you advised many of your clients on how to set up HR transformations and so on. But from your time at the field, what do you think actually work in terms of strategies? So not the whole list that you advise usually, but if you could just give us 2 or 3 of the ones that do actually work.
So for scaling up L&D programs effectively, yep. Which I think we've covered some actually around scaling up. It's funny, as Dr. Amna, we're I think pretty aligned with our responses to some of these things. So I would go again down to fundamentals. So workforce planning, understand the skills that you need. So if you can do that supply-demand analysis and you know what your critical skill gaps are. So if we assume that's done, now then how do we scale up L&D effectively to close skill gaps? So one where you have your critical skills with the highest volume of need, that's where you would invest most of your learning dollars in. That's where you have your big blockbuster programs, your classroom-based training. Maybe one of the more innovative things that we've done previously for clients is you implement learning journeys. So it's not just one time, here's classroom-based training and you assume you walk out now as an effective people manager. That doesn't work. So you have multiple touch points during the year. You have 2 days on, and then people have self-study, they have coaching and mentoring, they have maybe projects you can add to it, so you really diversify what people are doing in the interim, bring them back again on another topic, self-reflection, go off and come back again. And then being very realistic about what people are trying to achieve during this time. Funny, we're having conversations this morning about other things that are innovative right now, just having an ROI in L&D. It sounds bizarre that we're talking about innovation as how do we measure the effectiveness of learning and development, but we have these conversations thinking, wow, this is how did you achieve that? How did you do that? We need to be much better at understanding what we're trying to achieve from this, being business aligned, having clear metrics, being able to monitor, assess that in whichever ways we can. And I think there's some ways we can even do that with soft skills around engagement from staff, satisfaction levels from people managers, using tech to support that. So I say that's kind of your big blockbuster stuff. And then you have anything that's not your critical high volume skill needs, then you fit that, you slot that in with other mechanisms. That's using Coursera and other partners like Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. There's lots of, I think, really reputable vendors starting to emerge out now. Self-study, credentializing, certifications online, micro-learning. There's so much tech out there that can support for stuff that's not your big blockbuster skill needs.
Yes, I absolutely love the ROI bit, and from my experience, if I may, a panelist for just 30 seconds, we always face this struggle of how do we measure success with our partners? How do we define success to begin with, and then along the journey, how do we actually reach a point where we say, okay, milestone, tick, tick, tick. And I'm actually interested to see, as a follow-up question, if I may, the best practice when it comes to designing measurable goals in a way, and then how do we keep monitoring and measuring our success?
So if there's something hard, for sure, you can measure customer satisfaction levels, right? Surveys going out at airports to customers coming through, they can give you immediate feedback that you can align then to customer service frontline training. This is work that the UAE collectively has been very active in. The softer stuff is a little bit more challenging, right? And also it's sometimes hard to differentiate what are the effects of learning versus what are the effects of an influx of talent. I think in the region we also have high turnover. We tend to see 25 to 30% turnover in organizations. So how do you attribute new skill acquisition in your company to learning, to training, versus talent that you're pulling in the door? But there's mechanisms, I would say use surveys. Have people do not just level 1 surveys off the back of completing training, but follow up with their learners after 6 months. Have they actually implemented any of the learnings into their day-to-day? Follow up with people managers. The harder you can get on your metrics, the better. But in the absence of that, don't do nothing. And don't just do level 1, people walk out the door, did they enjoy the training? Follow up with managers, follow up after 6 months, follow up after a year. You can't do it for everything, but do it for the key critical skills that you're looking to build, your biggest critical skills with the biggest gap areas.
Yes. I totally agree, and I think it's always easier with technical skills. Like we talked about CCNA, and it's either they can fix the router or not, right? So it's clear.
And of course, if they finish the course, I mean, measuring is just measuring the number of students with the class completions who really got the certificate or the micro-credentials, which is a little bit more easy indeed than the abstract processes you have to measure. That's correct.
Yes. Now, on the other hand, with soft skills, and if I may ask Your Excellency, we talked about emotional intelligence in the beginning. You mentioned critical thinking as well. And those are obviously much harder to measure, right? How do I actually reach a point where I'm happy now, I improved my critical thinking skills? So what are your thoughts on measuring such soft skills in a way?
Yeah, actually, there are several methods in measuring the impact of any training program or any soft skills, but most of it should be after observation of the employee himself. It will take a long time, but it will show. But it's not easy to measure, as you mentioned by my colleague as well in the panel.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we have at the end kind of like fresh off the press presentation from Rick, as today marks an important day in a way for Cisco. I'm going to talk about this in a second, but before we move to this part, I'm just interested to see if we have any questions from the audience, if anyone would like to ask a question, and if Jacob and the team can give a microphone here, please.
Hi, thank you so much for the conversation. My question is to Jill. You spoke about skills mapping, right? And a lot of conversation is about companies or HR, the HR team evaluating the employees. But there are a lot of us who work for companies where we don't have this infrastructure and we want to do it for ourselves. Or somebody who is in between careers. Like I shifted mine when I was 42. And I had to figure out what I'm good at, and I just had no idea how to do it. I think I'm still somewhere there. So it's for individuals who want to understand what is my skill set, and then how do I grow it. Is there something that is online or some service that HR would have that we could go to, individuals could go to, or go online and figure out what I'm good and what I'm bad at and where I need to build?
Yeah, thank you. I love that you've asked this question. And I say we're still trying to figure out what does the future work look like, what are skills. This is why it's such an exciting time to be doing workforce planning and being in L&D. What I would suggest is you have to be very proactive as an individual, but it's worth doing this, is look online, look at white papers, other thought leadership. World Economic Forum has a list of what they consider to be their critical skills. They've done extensive work, actually, around future skills. A lot of the consultancy firms, McKinsey, Mercer, for me, would be kind of the go-to first consultancy firms around skills. I think even Coursera, don't you also have like a career planning guide?
Yes, we do. I mean, I would actually talk to you maybe privately after the session. But with Coursera, we actually we're leveraging AI to help you as a learner with your career path questions in a way. So once the platform gets to know you, gets to know your interests in terms of learning, your profile as a professional and all of this, then the AI will start making recommendations for not only content that you can benefit from, but also in terms of career path as well. But we can continue the discussion later.
And just to add to that, because you're effectively what you're doing is creating your own development plan. And in terms of where you go next, I would continue to look for the intersections between where is your passion, what are you good at, and what is needed. What is needed by the market, by your industry. You have to pick a lens, but find the intersection of your passion, the skills you uniquely bring. Double down on your skills, so don't always focus on your development areas. Focus on what do you do well and how can you really brand and market yourself for what you do well and what's needed. And then be proactive, talk to people in the community, get content online, start to build that map yourself. We're all trying to figure this out as we move along. But, and I'm happy to continue the conversation, so please connect with me too on LinkedIn. Yeah.
I have already sent it to you while you were speaking. Thank you so much for this.
Okay.
Hello.
So can we start
Hi.
there, please?
So thank you very much for the intervention. I'm aware that we're talking about preparing the next generation to be ready for the new skills. But from your point of view, what are the strategies or the best practices to prepare the seniors that are already in the workplace in order to acquire the new skills and especially in the context of rapidly evolving new technologies?
Are you asking anyone in particular?
No, it's a general question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who would like to? Okay.
Just in general, the question, because I think it's a great question. It's about existing employees, how to continuously develop them in time, what we used to call lifetime learning. And I think the good thing about your question is that there's one word which I haven't heard the last 2 days, and that is retainment. And retainment is what we call the new recruitment. Why constantly invest also in getting new people in while the onboarding cost and the investment in terms of time and energy is huge? So invest in your existing population, in your pool, in your talent pool. So therefore, and that is also coming back to the example I just had with and upskilling employees in these countries in Europe, I mean, basically it's the same question. I think your HR department, I think your leadership team, yes, should work together in providing the right courses and the right educational programs for basically any employee. I mean, it doesn't make sense if you invest only, and I'm in favor of investing in talent. I heard yesterday the percentage of 25 youth unemployment here in this region, which is massive. So let's invest, yes, absolutely, but don't forget the existing employees in keeping them on the road. And in terms of what kind of courses, of course it is IT, but it is also IT for the non-IT people. It is the soft skills, but also in terms of AI and the communicative skills and the normal soft skills, I would say. So I would step into the barrier with your colleagues and go to HR and say, come on, help us out, keep us in and develop us. And it could go, it differs on the branch, of course, in the sector. It could go in different directions, I would say.
Thank you very much, Rick. So we have a...
Hi.
Yes, you have the mic. Perfect.
I just want to know, like, you were talking about customer feedback, customer satisfaction survey, right? How can you validate it? I mean, if you just give a survey paper to the people, many of them just tick it, you know? Like, at the end of the session, if you want to say how good was the session, many of them will tick good. Like, we don't know, how can you validate it? What is the mechanism that you use?
For no one in particular,
Yeah,
right? Anyone can. So who would like to take the question about genuine feedback? How do we get genuine feedback?
Yeah, I know I covered it when I was speaking before. Yeah, so for us, for the skills one in particular, so that's where I was referencing is, we gave people the taxonomy. We said, please go into Workday and update your skills, right? So this is, question one is, well, what's the reliability of this data? Now, it's never going to be 100% perfect because it's self-assessed, but what we did is add a layer of your manager needs to validate that or not. You ideally are working with your manager and they have some kind of connection to you. They should be able to acknowledge whether you have that skill, you're demonstrating that skill. If you need to take it further than self-validation, and further than manager acknowledgement, I would choose specific skills. They have to be critical skills, and then you can put assessments and diagnostics on top of that. Again, vendors like Coursera, there's a number of different vendors who can support in either more generic or building very customized assessment tools, but it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's worth doing if you have critical skills that you need to ensure reliability of the data off the back end.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you. Just I have a little comment. In my humble opinion, the employee is 3 segments together. Okay, number 1 is communication. He's able to communicate. He has skills to apply in his job. And he has evaluation that he should be evaluated from time to time by his director. Okay? So now the human employee, and I'm talking about the AI employee, okay, or the AI agent. I'm not worried about the seniors who are already in work. Now what I'm worried about is the juniors who are going to join the work. Especially, I am an AI and information expert, and I have already developed some sort of an AI employee that's compatible with any job. You just give me the job description, I give you the employee, just like that, okay? So actually, after doing that, I'm thinking I have made a big crime somehow. But if I don't do it, somebody else will do it. So my point here, how can we balance between the human intelligence and AI intelligence, or in other words, the human employee and the AI employee? And how can we avoid the risk of replacing the next generation juniors of joining the work?
Yeah,
thank you.
It's interesting. So the gentleman there was worried about the seniors, and he's worried about the juniors.
I'm totally different.
Yes. So, yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's a very interesting question, actually. I like it. To be honest, always I'm keep saying that even for my team members, we have a new team member called AI. So use it, utilize it to perform better. So it's not a replacement, just use it as it is. We try to benefit out of it. So it will not be replaced. The humans is fundamental. The foundation of human soft skills, we cannot replace it with any technology. But we can use the technology to support us, to enhance our skills, to achieve our objectives and goals at the end of the day.
This is a good note, actually. So I can call my product AI assistant better than an AI employee.
A new team member, you can say.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to take one more question, please, here, and then we will move to Rick's presentation. Yes, please.
Well, finally, you had an eye on me. Thank you. It's a wonderful session. So my question is very simple, easy peasy. What is the area in human resources, or when you go for a talent, to take from the people, those who apply, and you will use AI for a particular challenge? What is that challenge? To get one good person to hire for a company, as all our HR advisors and everything. So what is the one point would you get more trust on AI, rather doing, since AI normally, in my opinion, is a tool, right? So to get things automated. So what is that one area you would love to automate it than to go physically?
To everyone or anyone?
To everyone, yeah.
Yes. So it's basically, how are you guys, how are your excellency, and so how are you using Gen AI in a way? What is the task that you trust Gen AI to do?
Or you feel more better using this task with AI rather than doing physically?
Well, in general, to be honest, we don't look only at AI. I mean...
No, my question is not that you are looking on AI. Now you want to hire one person from 500 people.
Yeah.
So what challenge you will use AI to get that challenge recovered? Because if you do physically, you will take long time. So when you talk AI as an automation, so you want to use automation to make things simpler, right? Like when we go to supermarket, there is no physical cashier, and you can go and do self-check-in because you don't want to stand in a queue. So if I want to get one gentleman or one he or she in a team as a head of board or something, so what is that area the AI you will use for, rather doing physically?
Okay.
This is the question.
Yes, I can take this briefly, if I may, and then we can move to Rick. So.
Because every company has different way of using the technological tool in their segment, right? You know?
Yes, all clear. So I think
that's my point.
Yes.
And this, I think, if all the big Fortune companies are using it, so there will be some task where you will penetrate more with AI than doing as an automation.
All clear. So would you like to take it, or shall I?
Just in general, it's not only about hiring and onboarding. As you know, also recruitment companies are checking on keywords. recruitment, just 4 or 5 keywords should be in your resume, and this is how they look. And then they're going to look who you are, and then they're going to look how you act, what's your behavior, and what's your motivation, etc. The keywords is this. So coming back to AI, your question, or in general, how do we check? So, for instance, but this is an example for our company, we check on certificates, we check on micro-credentials. What did you learn in terms of what we need for this IT company? So it's pretty simple, I would almost say, to check at least for that kind of things, KPIs and measurement points, before you move on in contact the person and check other parts. So this is how we use technique also in onboarding, I would say, and in recruitment.
Perfect. Thank you, Rick. And speaking of AI, today marks the launch of Cisco's Global AI Readiness Index. And we're lucky today that we have Rick from Cisco sharing this with us at the end of this session. Now, I would like to say it was an honor for me to be on stage with the panel. I'd like to thank you all for your patience with us. And then I'll just move it to Rick. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Karim. I can use this mic. Let me see if you can put up the presentation. Yeah, just a few slides, just a few minutes. It was meant to be part of, let's say, the discussion here, but I don't want to take time of my fellow panelists, etc. But indeed, like Karim said, it's just an incredible coincidence that this morning at 9 o'clock, the embargo stopped of this presentation, this research. We act globally from Cisco on the AI Readiness Index. So if this talk was being yesterday, I could not have presented it. So I'm happy that we can do it now. Just a few slides, because the package is huge, about 90 slides. I just want to share about 5 or 6 slides with you. So brand new data also for you. If the clicker wants to work, which is not the case. There we are. So there was a research under about a couple of hundred companies, I think it was 490 worldwide, under a couple of pillars. I'm afraid the clicker is not working properly, gentlemen. Can you hear me in the back there because the clicker is not working? Oh, there it is. Karim, it's working. So there's 6 pillars being investigated in this research. It's about strategy, it's about infrastructure, goals, governance, culture, and talent. Let's focus for this session on talent. I mean, it's on IT skills. And as you can see here, it's the questions being asked to these companies in terms of talent and how well under-resourced is your pool, your talent pool. What's the proficiency level in the in-house talent? What's the investment in terms of budget? What did you actually do for your companies, for your employees? Also one of the questions here today. But also in terms of inclusiveness, how does AI and also your accessibility of your courses to and your educational material for people, for instance, with disabilities? So very important question also nowadays, I would say. So the result globally was interesting, I would say, because if you compare these 2 years, 2023 and 2024, and you look at the laggards, which are really the slow movers in red, the followers is yellow, the chasers blue, and the pace setters is green. So overall, these are all these 6 pillars together. Nothing changed too much. Basically, indeed, it was going down a little bit. If you compare, for instance, the pace setters, it moved down with 1%. It moved up with 1% for the chasers, the followers a little bit higher, and the laggards in 24, 1% lower. So not too much. And this is AI. You would expect on a yearly basis more results, isn't it? So moving on to the conclusion, not the end of the presentation, but the conclusion so far of Global is indeed it is flattening and a little bit declining even. Again, you won't expect this on AI. If you look at the 2 things, and let's look at the left side, the talent pillar, most interesting, I would say, if you compare 2024 with 2023, that indeed The pay setters is again 1% lower in terms of talent globally. It is 3% lower in terms of the chasers, and the other two parts, the followers and the laggers, are a little bit higher. But you could say globally of all these companies, this is a little bit concerning. If it's flattening or declining just 1 or 2% in a world you would expect to grow and to have more impact on a yearly basis, I think that's interesting to know. This is global data. I just received yesterday the data for the Emirates. I also have the data for Saudi Arabia. So if there is anyone in the room who wants to have that, just knock me on the shoulder and I will send you that. And by the way, I guess you can also find it by tomorrow on the global Cisco site, the AI Readiness Index. But again, the other data covers really globally. So let's look at these states, the Emirates. You can see on the right-hand side, basically the same picture. If you compare United Arab, the Emirates with global, in terms of the pay setters and the chasers, it is declining a bit of even the same. The laggards and followers, a little bit changed. Sales the laggards is even a little bit lower. But you would expect, to be honest, I would expect also for the Emirates to move a little bit faster in terms of AI compared to the rest of the world, which is not the case looking at these data. And by the way, you can also see in the left-hand side, so the investment in talent, and what I just said to you, gentlemen, in terms of retainment, retainment really is the new recruitment. Invest in keeping the people in and guide them to the next level in their career. Very relevant. So 3 takeaways just to finalize. First of all, it is flattening and declining. Look at these numbers globally, but also in these 7 Emirates states. As you can read in the newspaper, IT companies, also the big 6, whatever, Cisco is not one of them, but the big 6 company investing billions and billions of euros and dollars in AI. But we don't see the ROIs yet. So that's also, it gives a lot of stress in those companies, so invest so much money, but not seeing the direct impact in terms of ROIs. Does that mean they're doing nothing? No, absolutely not, because the pressure is relentless. AI is everywhere. This complete congress is about IT skills and AI. So, as you all know, in these leadership boards, it is constantly on this topic, but it's the effects in terms of ROI and also the investments and the impact, for instance, on talent, we don't see it yet regarding these data. Finally, in terms of AI, these are numbers for the World Economic Forum. They are from 2 years ago because this is about 2025. This is the big number stated at that time. So yes, because of machine learning, because of the interactions between humans and machine, we will lose millions of jobs. 85 is the number mentioned here. On the other hand, also being mentioned also during this Congress, we have new numbers coming in on 97 million new jobs. So it is just, which is incredibly difficult to move this one part to the other part, which will not happen looking at the 4 industrial revolutions we had. I mean, some groups will have nasty problems moving from A to B, but on the other end, in terms of progress, in terms of welfare, we can keep good track also with AI, looking at this immense number of new jobs. And just one finalizing with 2 words. In Europe, we have this skills-first approach now. I mean, it's also an answer to your question. But what should we do first? I think the dedicated course was hire for attitude, not for skills. This was a serious new recruitment policy, but now it is skills-first approach. And I think the good news and also the perspective also for this region and looking at these huge numbers of unemployment for the youth, it is not necessary anymore. I don't want to discourage or whatever people going to school because general knowledge is still very, very important. But in getting a job, for instance, in IT or connected to IT, go indeed for courses, go indeed for certificates, go indeed for micro-credentials, because then the step of getting hired and getting onboarded in a company is much faster, much easier than going through a route educational in 3-4 years in doing this and then 6 or more years in doing that, and then that knowledge is outdated before you start. So I would say, and we have seen many, also within Cisco and the Cisco networking academy program, we've seen so many life-changing, I would say, examples of young people going through these certificates and starting a career by just starting with CCNA or an intro course on cybersecurity, for instance, and then step forward to another course on an associate level, and then, for instance, getting on board. I hope that also these kind of advices will work also for these kind of states. I'm sure, looking at the youth, so hopefully it's helpful in that perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.